constantly tense, you're constantly anxious, you're constantly worried, and you don't know why. And your nervous system is not built to be like that 24/7. So what then starts to happen is that you start to get aches and pains, you start to get digestive issues, you start to get neurological issues. And for me, it really manifested hugely into actual symptoms of diagnosable multiple sclerosis.
So, Kate, thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm glad to have you here. And yeah, let's just get started. So just tell me a little bit more about where you come from, why you do what you do.
Sure. Okay. So yeah, I'm Kate McGinley. I am the founder and creator of Pure Soul Guidance. I suppose I started my spiritual journey about 20 years ago, and I felt compelled to know more, to understand more, to just that our daily life isn't everything that we believe that it is. And I just had this push to explore spirituality as a whole. And so I started kind of learning the foundations of spirituality and going to, a normal kind of spiritual development class, learning how to do clairvoyance and energy work, energy protection, channeling, tarot, all of those kind of foundational things. And then as I progressed, I decided that I wanted to learn more about energetics, and I wanted to understand how that interacts with our daily world and that would grow my spiritual understanding. So I trained to be a Reiki master at that point. And once I'd learned how to do that, and I understood how energetics is everything and how we connect to the universe, how our bodies work, how we connect energetically with each other, I decided to go and be very human for a little while and go and train in medical science. So I did that for about 10 years and became a medical specialist in medical research. But the great thing is that these two things together, medicine and spirituality and energetics, really did give me this amazing foundational understanding of the principles of how our bodies work, what the universe is, how we all connect, how our energetics manifest as real medical symptomology, how we can go through illnesses and experiences because of the energetics that we have, and decided to grow it from there. And a beautiful friend of mine that I met a while ago, she's actually a soulmate of mine from thousands of miles away. She can understand exactly what I'm going through and calls me and goes, "What's going on today? Why is this happening?" And so I met her, and she kind of pulled me back into spirituality and made me show her all of the things that I had learned and all of my knowledge. And I decided that pharmaceuticals and all of that normal kind of rat race of corporate day-to-day life wasn't for me. So I decided to uproot my life and move to Thailand and create my own reality and understand really how all of this works, how manifestation works, how energetics really works, and what the whole universe, human species connection thing means. For me, as a child and throughout my early adult life, I had an extremely traumatic upbringing, and I really worked on my inner self and understanding all of the energetics of that and really trying to process through that. And what I realized once I got rid of all of that stuff is that I don't know who I am anymore. So I needed to kind of come up with like what I wanted to envision my life to be. And I knew that it was definitely spirituality. And the advice that I give to my clients is, what is that one thing that brings you so much joy that you want to do every day, that someone's going to ask you to come on a podcast and talk about, and you could talk about it for an hour with no preparation? And this is it. Just spirituality. I don't think the word spirituality is big enough for a start, but it just encompasses everything that we are as human beings. And because of the trauma processing that I did, I came up with Pure Soul Guidance to, first of all, give spiritual guidance to people, because how do we find spiritual guidance people nowadays? We're all so isolated after COVID and online, and so you can't really go to those old spiritual circles anymore and just start learning about clairvoyance and things. So we need to connect in this way through things like podcasts and social media, and find those spiritual teachers that really resonate with us and align with our energetics. So that's half of my business. And the other half is dealing with energetic trauma. So really dealing with finding the energetics of those trauma experiences that people have been through, and understanding the beliefs that lay underneath those things, and really looking at those beliefs and changing those beliefs. And as soon as you do that, then it's permanently and immediately just, it stops. Your coping behaviors stop, everything stops. So that's the other half of my business. And so I find myself in Thailand with this spiritual business. And I think, and even just by you, thank you so much for inviting me to come on this podcast. You asking me to come and talk today has made me realize a lot of things about how I want my future to look. So I'm really trying to understand, not trying to understand, I'm really creating my own reality as we speak, Natasha. So that's where I'm at, and that's who I am.
So let's just go back a little bit. So you say you experienced a lot of trauma. Without going into detail, if whatever you don't want to share, obviously don't. But
yeah.
how did that trauma manifest? Just so that the viewers can kind of get a feeling of what is that? Because to me, trauma is like a widely spoken word, and when you mention it, it's almost like people run away from it and they say, "Well, I never had that," you know.
Yes. Yeah, and I really didn't think that I had a traumatic childhood until I really started to unpack all of it. And I just thought that that's what normal life is like. And no, abuse is not normal. No, people doing things around children is not normal. Being brought up in a violent household is not normal. Not having parental input is not normal. So even though it's my normal, it really did do a number on my nervous system entirely. I realized as an adult, it actually took me having my child in 2015 to realize that I was in complete fight or flight mode all the time, that I was just trying to keep that at bay and not just be okay all the time, and just really not look at that stuff. So I did kind of mention it a moment ago, that trauma really can manifest as real medical issues, real big medical issues. And what happens is when you haven't released trauma emotionally and you haven't released trauma energetically, it really starts to play with your physicality and really starts to show you real physical symptoms that can be medically diagnosed by a doctor. So for me, it did start to manifest as real nervous system shutdown, and having this medical understanding and knowing that when you're in fight or flight mode, you do produce those wonderful hormones of adrenaline and cortisol, and they really start to get to these levels in your body that you constantly have. And you're not meant to have those levels constantly in your body all the time. So what they do start to do is they start to damage your nervous system, because they're keeping you ready to flight or ready to fight, and you're constantly tense, you're constantly anxious, you're constantly worried, and you don't know why. And your nervous system is not built to be like that 24/7. So what then starts to happen is that you start to get aches and pains, you start to get digestive issues, you start to get neurological issues. And for me, it really manifested hugely into actual symptoms of diagnosable multiple sclerosis. So I really had to start going to see neurologists. I was falling over, I was losing my vision, I wasn't able to speak properly, my leg wasn't working at one point, my bladder and my bowel stopped working, all of these things. And I went to doctor after doctor after doctor, and they said, there's nothing wrong with you. There's absolutely nothing wrong with you. And having the medical background that I had gave me a bit more confidence to say, no, I need the X, Y, and Z test, please. I need to know all about this. I knew I had MS. They didn't believe me. And so I kept going back, and it took about 5 years for them to even really listen. And I said, right, I want a lumbar puncture, I want this, I want that. And when they did do that, they found actual neurological damage, and they went, okay, yeah, you do have that. Yeah, actually, okay. And then they couldn't really do anything about it because it hadn't done enough damage. And so I started to research medically about how I can stop this and what was going on. And I eventually found out that I had some trouble with the top of my neck and my spine. And I needed brain surgery to release the tension in the back of my brain, because my brain was coming down into my spine, which it really shouldn't do. And I went to see neurosurgeons, and they were all saying, no, you're perfectly fine. That's the way it normally looks on an MRI. and I found a beautiful neurosurgeon. I was drawn to him. I don't really know how, I don't really know why. I found him through something. And I eventually had a Zoom call with him, and he was like, just looking at you, I can tell exactly what you've got. You need brain surgery, and you need it now. And that was quite empowering, first of all, but then secondary to that came sheer terror that I needed brain surgery and full spinal surgery. And I had to raise £40,000 for that because the NHS didn't pay for it at the time. And I thought, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? How am I going to pay for this surgery? And so me and my spiritual friend sat down, and she said, we manifest it. That's what we do. We tell the universe that that's what we're going to do. And I had some things I could sell, but I was about, it was £40,000. So I had about 10, 12,000. And I sat and I meditated and I talked to the universe, and I told the universe that this is happening. If I need to be healthy, that's what I see my future to be. And I need people to help me. I need people to show me the love that I give out every day. I didn't realize I was emotional about this still. So it was a slow process. I did a couple of kind of newspaper reports, things like that. I got a GoFundMe out there, and that they started to trickle in, and I was like, okay, it's all right. And I was speaking to a friend of mine one day that I hadn't spoken to in years. I worked with her years ago at Women's Aid as part of a domestic violence project. And she was like, look, our patron is Michael Sheen. Why don't you just go on Twitter and speak to Michael Sheen and say you work for Women's Aid, or you have done, just ask him to share it. That's all. So I got onto Twitter and I shared him my GoFundMe, and I said, Michael, I used to work for Women's Aid. You're our amazing patron. Please, can you just share this? It's all I need to get some traction. And he donated a huge amount of money. And then he shared it to everyone, and it was just a landslide. And I had a matter of like days to get this £40,000 together. And just the love that I received from all over the world, the messages that I got about my son and my life and everything. So I went into surgery, and I had a chat with my surgeon before. And I said, this is the surgery that's going to make me healthy. That's it. That's my reality. That's what I'm creating. And he was like, okay. And we had a bit of a spiritual chat. He was not really a spiritual person, but we talked about it. And I woke up in ICU, and he was like, so how much pain are you in? And I was like, what do you mean? And he said, well, no, how much pain are you in? Do you want some medication? And I said, well, no, I'm fine. And he just was like, what? And he left the room and went and got the anesthesiologist and came back in. And they both stood there, and they went, what? You need some pain medication. No, I'm perfectly fine. I feel 1,000 times better than when I went to sleep. And they were like, what is happening? This is the most painful surgery in the world. You can't not have anesthesia when you wake up from this. And I just said to him, Jake, do you remember I said, this is me. This is healthy. I don't need anything else. Within 2 weeks, I was doing yoga I've got bolts and nuts in my neck. I've got plates in the back of my head. 2 weeks, I was doing yoga, driving, picking up my son, doing everything I could. And he was like, this is the most unexplainable, miraculous turnaround I've ever seen in a patient. And it was just the most incredible experience of my life. That is how trauma manifests. And if you leave it and you ignore it and you continue to cover it up with coping mechanisms and I'm okay and I'm fine and I'm all right, I was always taught never to, I was never asked if I was okay. I was never, nobody ever took me to therapy when I was little. Nobody, even after all of the court cases and everything, no one ever went, are you okay? So I never learned to use my voice and to get my trauma out and to talk about my experience. And just the whole process since then has been about just me talking about my experience. That is how dangerous trauma can be if you don't energetically deal with it.
You're absolutely right, because people themselves are stuck in their own trauma, so they don't see you. I mean, when you're a child, you think your parents are gods and they know everything, and they, and then you take it as a direct reflection on who you are, because it must mean there's something wrong with you, and then you'll end up being the caretaker. And then you never ask for help because everybody else needs it. And then you think, well, maybe one day, once I've given them all the help and they're okay, then they will see me. And the truth is they may and they may not. But in the meantime, nobody's seeing you. So that is quite an amazing journey that you've been through. Wow.
Yeah. And since then, I've just decided to change everything about myself and to get rid of all of those things that no longer serve me, that I no longer want in my life, just what I want my life to look like. And as you're saying, you know, about your parents, my mother was an alcoholic, pharmaceutical drug addict. So she did not take care of me. And my father was very distant and emotionally unapproachable. And I know that you have worked with narcissistic, kind of all of that in your career and your knowledge. And so that is what has happened with regards to the other side of my family. And so, yeah, I was always told that my experience is not valid. And to the point that my father even told me when I was going through this multiple sclerosis diagnosis, you're making it up. You like being ill. You will like the drama. And that just broke me. Something I still find very difficult to deal with, really. So it's finding a way through. It's finding a calm way to piece yourself back together, to find who you are truly without all of that stuff. And like I said, once you get to that point where you've processed all of those things, and they still come up, clearly they still come up because I'm emotional about them. There's layers to things, but the emotion that I'm feeling now is an emotion of love for myself and what I went through, rather than, oh my gosh, I went through that and all of the stuff that I went through. So just kind of compassion for myself. And now I'm in a safe space in my life. I'm able to let that emotion out and feel that. And that's great that I now have that safe space where I can do that. But yeah, not having that support and not having a voice is very, very, that in itself is traumatizing.
It is, but you know, I just see like we're brave souls coming down to experience this trauma so that we can kind of pay it forward and help others who don't know. So it's like you have to go through it yourself in order to know what it is that other people are experiencing, and what did you do in order to heal it to get there. But I found that it's quite an interesting combination that you have of having the medical field and the spiritual field, because they kind of juxtaposed, you know. And to me, the medical field, I mean, I think they're a wonderful, you know, when they're able to do surgery and do stitches when you've cut your knee open or something like that. But when it comes to diagnosing, it's very cumbersome. They want all these expensive equipment. They've lost that intuitive ability like the old days, where the doctor would know you holistically. They would understand what's going on in your life. They would know what's happening in the family. They would see the different diseases. Nowadays, you've got 5 minutes. You sit in the waiting room. The doctor's just looking through his list of symptoms and then diagnoses you according to the list. And and I mean, how much you said you had to beg for 5 years just to get them to acknowledge.
And
that is
15 different neurosurgeons, neurologists. It was horrific. Even that journey in itself created trauma. But you hit the nail on the head there at in the middle of what you said, in that what did you say? Apologies, because brain surgery does actually affect the way that my short-term memory works, so I tend to forget sometimes.
I did say a lot.
You did. But you did hit the nail on the head that doctors used to be holistic. They used to encompass everything, whereas they don't now. And what you said that was really lovely was that go to your doctor when you have a cut knee or you need stitches. Absolutely, the medical field as it's currently set up has a place in a holistic practice. And so if you are in crisis, if you are mentally in crisis and you need help there and then, yes, doctors, yes, 100%. And medication, if that's what you need to get yourself to a place where you can begin to deal with it and walk through it calmly. But if you're in a crisis state, yes, doctors. But there's so many other things to help people through, and talking therapies have their place, CBT and things like that have their place. But you can process trauma in your brain and in your physical. So, you know, the actual hurt can heal, but the energetics are still there. That's why they're putting Reiki masters in hospitals now. That's why, you know, that we have these phenomenon that we can't explain, where people have lost an arm and they still feel their arms. It's energetic. It's neurological. It's all one thing. So it's it's all encompassed in together. And that's one of the services that I do provide to my clients. Is this chat actually is a kind of a medical holistic look at what their kind of experiences and the things they've been through in their life are bringing up medically for them. And so many people at the moment have all of these autoimmune disorders, skin things going on, random things that they go to the doctor and the doctor's like, there's nothing wrong with you, but there's also 100 things wrong with you, and we really don't know why that's happening. And so that's why naturopaths are coming back. Naturopaths are medically trained doctors. I don't understand why people think that they are, that old word, that quack word that we use, and that's something that was put into societal kind of vocabulary in medical history. And there's an absolute, having studied medical history, it's wonderful to look at. It comes from the old pharmaceutical companies into the medical schools and then into society. And these words like quacks and everything like that is just, it's become part of our daily basis, where we think that we can only see a medical doctor and that is it. And that's not the only way. There's a holistic medical practice that goes on for everything that we need as a human being.
Well, what I find also has happened because of that is people have outsourced their own health problems to somebody else. Even people will go to a doctor and they'll get medication and then they'll tell the doctor, I'm not better, but they didn't even take the medication. So, and it's like, the doctor said, and there's no thought behind it. Like there's no, and I agree. First aid is the first place that I would go to seek medical attention if I needed it. But to put my life in their hands and assume that somebody else knows you better than yourself is crazy. But I like that you didn't have any pain, because, if you manifested your illness, then you can manifest your health too.
100%. Yes. And this is where it gets good spiritually, is that we have people like the works of Dolores Cannon and Bashar and Eckhart Tolle and who else, Dr. Joe Dispenza. They talk about we as human beings are able to heal ourselves. And I deep dived into that when I had my second or third spiritual awakening. I was like, right, I now understand medicine. Let me go and see how this really works. And oh my gosh, their works changed my life. They blew my mind, how it all works and how trauma manifests in our body and how the energetics of that then begin to change our DNA and begin to literally manifest into things. And so we as human beings, our natural state is health, always health. And us as a body, as a physical body, that's what we're built to do, is repair ourselves. So if you're in crisis, if you've chopped your leg off, yes, you're obviously going to need a surgeon, but everything else can be healed by yourself through energetic work, through processing things, through doing things that nourish you, doing things that bring you joy, and not covering up the things that you don't want to look at with coping mechanisms and things that stop you from listening to your brain. And I know that everyone talks about meditation and people that aren't on a spiritual journey yet or are just starting, and the first thing everyone tells them to do is meditate, and they're like, wow, this is horrible, and they sit down and they meditate and they're just left with all of these thoughts. That's exactly what you're supposed to do, is be left in the space where you have all those thoughts, and you need to begin to get through them and put them aside and put them where they need to be to get to that place where you can connect. And once you connect and you realize there's a whole bigger world out there, and again, people like Dolores Cannon have made me understand that there are literally other species, there's other things, there's other worlds, there's other dimensions. It's incredible. And if you look at it from a zoomed out point of view like that, we are the most powerful things in the universe, as so are these other species. So if we can literally do anything we want to, we just believe that we can't. And we've forgotten who we are as human beings, as creators of our reality. And that is, I think that's probably going to be my mantra for the next kind of a few years going on. We are the creators of our reality, because we can literally do anything. And like I said, humanity has forgotten who we are. We've placed these limitations on ourselves where we believe that we have to experience suffering and a trial by fire before we get the good or the reward. We have to do the hard work before we get the reward. And that goes into normal society and economics, where we think we've got to work our fingers to the bone to get some sort of monetary income. We don't need to do that. at all. We can just experience joy and abundance and incredibleness. We can just move to Thailand and everything will be okay. We can. And it's about you believing that you can do that. And it's not just trying to believe, it is knowing. And that takes a hell of a lot of work to get there. But once you are there and you're like, I know this is what I was built for, then you are absolutely unstoppable.
I love that. I absolutely love that. I was feeling excited about it.
Let's go.
So, it just reminds me of my first husband was a paramedic, and he helped move the indigenous tribes, so a black tribe from this north of Africa to the south of Africa. Right. And one girl was 16 and she was having a baby, and she was just having a conversation in her language with her mother. No pain, no nothing. And he had to deliver this baby. I mean, he was a man in the army. He didn't know what he was doing. And she just delivered. And she had tiny little hips. She was a very thin girl, and the baby was big. No screaming, nothing. Yeah. And it all comes down to how they condition us through watching movies to what we expect should happen and how things should play out. And it all is just belief system. And, since you told me that story, I realized, childbirth is not this thing they make it out to be. It's just how you believe it to be. If you think it's just going to be part of life's process, yes, it could be a bit painful.
Yeah.
But after that, no problems.
I completely agree with you. When I had my son, my husband was, he was just, I think, with respect to him, I think he was completely in awe. And I didn't do a lot of the normal kind of prep stuff and a lot of I knew my body would know what to do. For example, now, this is a silly example, but if you think about spiders, okay, they come out of there's thousands of eggs, they come out of there, they all split up, they don't stay together, they don't stay with their mother, they don't learn from their mother, they go, they find a bush, and then they build a beautiful web, an intricate, incredible web that is the same as every other spider. It's exactly the same. They all build it in the same way. How does a spider know to do that when it hasn't learned it off of someone else? It's in your DNA, and you are built to do what you're supposed to do, and that's what we're supposed to listen to. And when I had my son, I literally just let my body go, and I ended up, getting completely naked and making these noises that came from some other place, and I was not there. It was a completely spiritual, it was energetic in nature. And when his head had come out, and the midwife was kind of like, I'd gone to a place that was just midwife led. There were no doctors, nothing. And I just remember that he'd half birthed himself, and then I was like, oh God, he's going to have to. She was like, he's going to turn around now. And how did he know to turn himself to then get his shoulders out? This is part of our DNA. The way that we are built as humans and what we're supposed to do on this planet is part of our DNA. That's what we need to connect to. That's what happens in meditation. That's who you're speaking to. It's not any more complicated than that. And it takes a lot of work and complicated thoughts to get to the simple, it's not that complicated.
Yeah, I think people are just so busy with their lives that they just don't have supposedly time for themselves. If someone says to me, I don't have 10 minutes to meditate, I say that you're right, then you actually need an hour.
Yeah Agreed.
Because it's just a reframing.
Yeah.
So how did you land up in Thailand? Because that seems like a bit of a jump.
It was a jump. I was living in rainy Wales, beautiful rainy Wales, I must say, but I had a corporate job. My husband was being an engineer locally. My son was going to the local school, and it was all perfectly idyllic and lovely. And we had a great income. Everything was perfect. And that was after my surgery. That was after, I was healthy. I just got healthy. I was literally 2 months going back to work, and everything was perfect. And my husband was like, great. Let's just sit here a minute. We were going to buy a house next to the school, and it would be all idyllic and lovely for the next 5 years, watching our son run across the road to school. And I just couldn't cope. And I know for me, that's a stress response. I know that I need to put myself in stress, and I'm still working on that. But there was just this pull, and I don't know where it comes from. And I had to connect to myself and really try and understand what it was. And I sat by the window watching the rain for 2 days at our kitchen table, And my husband kept coming in and, you know, cooking dinner and doing loads of things in the house. And I was just staring out the window like a crazy person. He was like, what is wrong with you? I was like, I'm reevaluating my life. Just leave me alone. And I realized that for some reason, if I don't move to Asia, I will end up going to an ashram in India and just isolating myself for the rest of my life to be spiritual forever. I don't know why I need to go. And so we sat down and I said, can we talk about moving, please? And he just went, oh God, Kate, you do this every time when we're perfectly fine, you know, and then you just want to do this crazy thing that just makes everything go all up in the air again. And then it took him about a day or two, and he came around and he said, oh, I quite like Greece, or I quite like, you know, Bali. Let's have a look at that. And so I thought, right, we're going to manifest this now. We're going to do this. And so we sat down at the kitchen table as a family, and I said, right, what do you want out of your life? What would make you happy? What would bring you joy? And this is what I do with my clients. I say to them, if you could press a button right now and have your dream life, what does that look like? Regardless of money, regardless of how or opportunity or whatever's going to happen, regardless of your children, what would you press that button and have it look like? And so we did that. We did the red button exercise. And we wrote down things like, we want a warm climate, we want a pool, which is right out there. We want, you know, our dog to be able to run in a giant garden. He's there, there's the garden. All of these things. And we did it as a family. And I wrote it down. I did a symbolization thing in my head, and that's the emotion that I went with. I created an emotion around it. I created the symbol in my head. So I didn't need to think of all the things I'd created. I just thought of the symbol and the emotion that came with that new life. And I got obsessed about it. I got obsessed about where I would eat, who I would talk to, what I would do when I got up in the morning. Would I go to yoga? That's how you manifest things, is you daydream about something. It's not necessarily about the specifics of manifestation and exactly how that's going to look like. It's just that emotion that comes from daydreaming and obsessing about this thing that is now the new you, that is who you are now. And that's how it comes in. And it doesn't come in from anywhere. Everything aligns with your new vibration you're putting out. So people think that manifestation is like a vending machine from the universe. It's not. You're giving your power away by doing that and asking the universe to give you a present. It's not that. You are the creator of your reality. So once you start to vibrate on a level where you live in Bali and you go to yoga every morning and your son goes to the international school down the road, when you start doing that, all of these things just move in front of you, and that's what happens. It took 2 weeks. I left that list in a drawer, took 2 weeks, and I got a phone call from this company, and she was like, we need someone in the UK to do blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, I'm thinking about moving to Asia in about 6 months, though, so I don't really know if I can do that. And she said, well, our head office is in Thailand. What do you think about that? Because you could probably just move to Thailand. It'll be absolutely fine. And so I just said yes. Until it was, you know, my one thing my father always taught me was say yes until it's time to say no. If it feels full of joy, do that. That's my added bit. But so I just continued to say yes. I did all the interviews. They gave me incredible salary. They paid for the move to Thailand. We did everything. We sold everything. We came with 8 bags of stuff and our giant Weimaraner of a dog. And we just left. We gave everything away. We didn't really sell it. We gave it to people, these people that turned up. Like this one guy turned up to collect, I don't know, something really random from the house, a table or something that his wife really needed. And he broke down just across the road, and this is synchronicity. He broke down across the road, and we went and helped him with his old van that he'd patched up for years, and he loved it. And I was wearing these trousers, you know, like the really floaty kind of Thailand ones that had just got elephants all over and stuff. He said, as soon as I saw you, I knew you were my people with those trousers on. And I was like, okay, where are we going with this? And he just told us his life story, that he'd had cancer and that he'd had to leave work and that his wife was struggling and that they were really struggling. And we found out that he was a musician, or he wanted to be a musician, and that's what brought him the most joy and what he wanted to do. And my husband just went, come with me. And he took him upstairs into the house and gave him all of his musician stuff. He gave him 2 full guitars worth thousands of pounds, all of, you know, his electrical stuff, the speaker, everything. He gave it to the guy and went, there you go and live your dream. It happens like that. And I was able to give people those manifestations that they were asking for, that they were working on themselves for. This guy wanted to be a musician. Here's the stuff, go. And I just felt so incredibly grateful that I was able to do that for other people and create little beautiful ripples of joy for people. So yeah, we got rid of everything when we came here. And So we got to Thailand, and it just became the most stressful thing I've ever done. And the company that actually I came over with was a complete, they'd swindled investors, they'd lied about things, and it was horrific. And they stopped paying me, and they had control of my visa. It was the most horrible thing. After everything I've been through, it was the most incredibly terrifying thing. We're in a new country, they control my visas. If I do anything, they can just cancel it and I can get deported. I haven't got a house to go back to or things to go back to. What am I going to do? And they stopped paying me. And in Thailand, if you haven't got the right visa, you can't work. You're not allowed. So we weren't allowed to work. So this is where I got to with Pure Soul Guidance. And I was just like, I'm sorry, stop. I can't cope with this anymore. It pushed me. And that wasn't the universe doing that to me as a punishment. The universe doesn't do things to you as punishments or good things or whatever. I did it to myself, to force myself to find my voice, to find my spiritual outlet, to do what I should be doing. And it was terrifying and horrific. But now, last night I was walking the dog, I was literally like, I've never been so grateful for the most terrifying 9 months of my life, because it brought me to this. And here I am. I wouldn't have done it otherwise. And I watched one of your TikToks actually yesterday, and you said something about your first report card tells you who you're going to be in your life, and it'll tell you exactly what job you're going to do and what your purpose is. And you were completely and utterly right, because my first, guess what it said? Just from this whole interview, guess what it said? That I'm going to be a what? Like, just what am I going, like, have a guess, please. I know it's putting you on the spot.
I don't know, a healer, a helper?
A talker.
Okay.
That's what I've done. This whole interview is, that's what I need to do. I need to get all of this knowledge that I've accumulated about spirituality and about the universe and about all of it, everything. And I need to just get it out there. And thank you for being part of that manifestation for me, because the day before you contacted me, I sat down and I spoke to the universe. I'd profoundly realized, okay, I am the creator of my own reality. This is what I want to do. I can't see what my reality is going to look like. So show me, surprise me. There's nothing more loving for me than for someone to throw me a surprise party. It's unconditional love. So I was like, right, I'm just going to throw myself a surprise party. I'm going to surprise myself every day. And overnight, you messaged me and asked me to come on your podcast. And I was so honored, like, that you would even think that I would, like, be good on a podcast. And then preparing for this podcast, I realized you've helped me to understand what I want for myself. I want to do this every single day for the rest of my life. I want to get what I know into the world and help people transition through to this new earth that we are going to all of this stuff, all of this species movement we're doing. It needs people like us and connections like this to just allow people to feel okay and safe, and everything is normal. It's okay. We're going together, and here's how we're going to do it. That's our job. And you've helped me realize that. So I'm profoundly grateful to you.
Oh, you're welcome. I just love your story. So tell me, if you look at the new generation, they don't have those problems that we have. I mean, even if at schools, they just get given awards for the sake of, every child gets 15 certificates, and, one might just be for being the quietest kid in the class, or for showing up every day. And that work isn't required anymore. So they get it. They've already got it. They're already saying, I don't need to do all this work. Why on earth must I try and conform? But it's the older generation that are still so brainwashed into having to do the right thing at their own cost. They're too scared to ask questions,
I really wondered what you were going to say then, because most people of our generation and above would say, oh, these kids have no idea. Why do they get all of those certificates for doing nothing? Like, normally that's the narrative that you get, isn't it? Of, well, they're not doing anything. They don't know. But you're right. They have just been given, it can be joyful and abundant, and you can achieve things and have all of this joyful amazingness immediately. You don't need to go through all of this terrible stuff to go through the good things, to choose the good things, to experience the wonderful things. So yes, just being a part of it, and you're getting a certificate for that, is exactly what we're doing. Being a part of this whole movement now, just being a part of it, that's it. And we should all get a bloody certificate, because it's incredible. And what we're doing is the universe is looking at us right now with absolute shock. And how the hell are they doing this? Because we put so many limitations on ourselves, unlike any other species. And we've created this box for ourselves that is so incredibly terrifying. And we're getting our way out of it, and we're connecting, and we're remembering, and we're understanding, and we're moving through it. And everyone else is like, wow, how are they doing this? And we're teaching other species. We don't know that we are teaching other species how to do this. And we should just be so incredibly proud of who we are as human beings.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Actually, last night, my son, I put food in the oven for him, and I'm not a good cook. Okay. At the best of times, he tolerates it. But he didn't know it was ready, and he said, Mom, do you want a star? I said, yes, I'd like a star, please.
Yes, please. Yes, I would.
Just for doing what I should be doing, yes, I'll have a star. Because it's also about receiving. You know, we also get taught you need to work harder than everybody else. You need to be always putting out there, giving, don't ask, be grateful, you know. And at some point you start thinking there must be something wrong with me. I'm bad to ask for something. And that needs to be beaten out of us, literally. It's been beaten into us, and now we're beating ourselves up. I mean, for how long must we keep doing that?
Yeah, agreed. We do have this ingrained belief in generations in our ancestral lines that believe that we cannot just have good things. We should feel guilty, and the human society, the species as a whole, believes that we need to suffer and that we need to feel guilty when we have something because other people don't. And, you know, when we were children, we were brought up with eat your food, otherwise, because other children don't have that. But the guilt that is, you know, it's not fair. It isn't fair on those children that don't have the stuff, but it's also not fair that you're making me feel guilty for having the thing. And it does become ingrained. And that throughout this financial process where this company stopped paying me and it was awful, I really grappled with that. And I really was like, should I just detach myself from wanting money? Should I do this? Should I do that? How do I come to the realization of getting that financial abundance? Because that is what people need. That is our transactional energetics of this earth at the moment. We can't get away from that. But it is guilt. And again, that's what I have to do with my clients, is whatever their trauma is, or whatever their situation is, or whatever they're going through, it's finding that belief underneath of what they truly believe. And it's normally one of those big three, like it's guilt, or it's shame, or it's, you know, that we should be suffering. And it just manifests in a million different ways from a million different experiences, but it's always the same, and it's always dealt with the same. And yeah, we have to have it beaten out of us. We do. And it's actually a really lovely point that you've made, that the children now that are coming through, they don't have that. So my son doesn't have that guilt about money. And God, the work that I've done to break that is incredible. And we should all be so proud that our kids don't have that. Instead of saying, oh, they don't know what they're talking about, they don't know how lucky they are. They do know how lucky they are, and they celebrate it and they expect it. And that's exactly what we did it for.
Yeah. And I think because we went through that generation of, I mean, the latchkey kids are the generation that had to come home, do it all, you know, get yourself to school, sort it out, don't have the attention. And you don't want that for your children. I remember when I was younger, I was traveling through America, and there's a lot of kids there that go on spring break with their parents' RVs. And these RVs are not cheap, they're expensive, and they've all got their parents' credit cards. And I was quite amazed, because coming from where I come from, we don't have that. You know, our kids, South Africa doesn't have that kind of wealth. But those kids' parents were in the 60s, and they probably lived in communes with no running water, no electricity, and they don't want that for their kids. So, you know, you always give your children something you didn't have.
Yeah.
And then we look at the things they don't give us and we get upset about it. That human nature, get upset about what you don't get. But I mean, violence and abuse, there's never an excuse for that, you know. And I think people hurt people, you know. And so when you're able to forgive that, it's just, how do you heal that within yourself? Yeah. So where do people get hold of you? Do you do one-on-ones? Do you do group sessions? How does your work? How do you work?
Yeah, I do all of the things. So I can do, we do one-on-ones. I sometimes do group sessions with lots of people. I also speak in front of people. I can do that for hire. But yeah, so my website is puresoulguidance.com. I'm on Facebook, Instagram. I don't really know how to use Instagram, so that's fine. Most of my talking content is on TikTok. But yeah, all of the normal ways, puresoulguidance.com. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll put all your links down below as well.
Thank you very much.
And yes, it was lovely to get to know you. And yeah, I've been thinking of moving overseas. I'm not sure where I want to go. So I'm toying with the idea of Mexico, Greece, Portugal, Italy, Thailand. So,
but I mean, Thailand is the spiritual mecca for, well, it is a spiritual mecca. So it needs more people like us. It really does, because even though Thailand is a very spiritual country, there's still that limited understanding of what's after that, what's above that, you know, and it does require people to hold the energy all over the planet, be part of that grid all over the planet. And just the connections that I've made here have expanded that grid again. And so there isn't enough of us all over the world. There isn't. So just move, do it. Wherever you're drawn to, go. It's the best thing. And it was incredibly scary there for a minute, but it's never been so worth it. Gosh, what a ride.
yeah, well, you know what? It's just about taking the leap and trusting that you'll be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I also, when I was young, I said, I'm going overseas. And I literally had $10 and an airline ticket. And my friend said to me, are you crazy? I said, well, I'm sure they'll feed me on the plane. And I never looked back. I had the best time of my life. So I think, but I mean, now that I'm older and I've got children, it's different. It's not as free. Yeah. You know, you've got to make sure that your children have got a space to stay and food. You know, if it's just myself on my own, it's different. But yeah. Anyway, lovely to
another day. I really want to hear what happened when you got off the plane with your $10.
Well, you know what actually happened? I went to Miami, and as I arrived at the youth hostel, because I knew that I had a map, they said, where are you from? And I said, South Africa. And they said, oh, we love South Africans. We've got a job for you. Literally, as I stepped off the bus. And I've never looked back.
Trust. How incredible. How incredible. Do it again. Do it. That's my advice. Thank you so much.
Yeah, awesome speaking to you. Okay, have a lovely evening.
Thank you so much for your time. Lovely to meet you.